One of my interests is in product photography, and I don't know really when it started, but I really started geeking out about it. And now that I say it out loud, it kind of sounds extra geeky, but I really enjoy doing it. And these are some of the shots that I've taken. Clearly, I'm an amateur at best, but I really do have a lot of fun coming up with new shot ideas and learning about it every time I do it. But I don't have any experience in product videography. Ironically enough, I was informed about a month ago that one of the classes we'll be teaching at Spears is for the Hotel and Tourism Management Department. We're going to be recording a coffee and beverage course that comes out in the fall. And I got really excited about it because one of my favorite shows on Netflix is Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee with Jerry Seinfeld. And not only are the conversations between comedians hilarious and entertaining, and the stories they tell are just fascinating, but also the product videography is really enticing. And the thematic shots, or the mood shots as I call them, they make it look really, really good. And so for my project, I wanted to figure out how to do this because this is going to come in great for this course that's coming up in the fall. So what I'm going to do, find a couple that I like and then figure out how to duplicate them. So if you're ready, let's go. Hi, my name is Jeremy Sharon, and in this episode, I'm going to try to recreate some of the shots from the episode with Martin Short in Producers Without Cars Getting Coffee. Okay, so here's what I suspect is going on with these close-up shots of the coffee brewing, the coffee simmering, the coffee pouring. They're using a narrow depth of field. In order to do that, you have to use a lens that has a very wide aperture setting. Now, aperture is measured in what they call f-stops. And a wide aperture makes a narrow depth of field. It's opposite of what you would think. Now, this is what depth of field is. It's basically what is in focus around the subject. A narrow depth of field, or a wide aperture, gets not much other than the subject in focus. You can see in this shot, my eyes are in focus, but even my ears are kind of out of focus, and the computer and lamp behind me that is only a foot or 2 feet behind me is out of focus. And a lot of times you don't even know what it is. It looks real dreamy. It makes very pretty shots. For product videography, product photography, same thing. That's what you want to use. You don't want the focus on anything else other than your product. So that's what we're going to do for this shot of coffee just steaming in a cup. That's what we're going to use. Okay, in the shots where they focus on the coffee cup, they're using a wide aperture setting that we talked about, and they also have additional product in the shot to help accentuate the feeling of that narrow depth of field. In some shots, they even zoom in on a particular cup of coffee. Now here's my recreation. One thing I've learned about this already is that planning is crucial, especially for a shot like this where you want steam coming out of the coffee cup. So everything else has to be set up and ready to go before you start messing with the coffee. Another thing I've learned is to try to knock out multiple shots in one shot. So I needed a shot of the steam coming out of the coffee, but I also was going to be pouring the coffee into the coffee shot, which was my next series of shots. So I wanted to get both of those right at the same time. So again, planning was crucial. I also learned that in order to show the steam, you needed a darker background and a darker cup. So in the end, I actually went with a shot that I created in a different area, and I've got a darker cup and I've got a darker background that you can see more accentuation in the steam coming from the cup. Another thing they use is slow motion. And in order to do that, especially when they're pouring coffee into a cup, you have to shoot at a high frame rate at 60 feet per second. And you have to have the shutter speed extremely high. Problem with having a high shutter speed is it darkens your image, right? So you have to use other settings to lighten the image back up. Obviously lighting helps, but also the ISO settings on your camera can be increased to give it more artificial light you might think of. The problem with too much ISO setting is that it makes your image grainy. So we're going to try and shoot coffee pouring into a cup, but not make it dark and not make it grainy. So this is going to be kind of a challenge. Let's see what we do. Okay, here's the show's example of coffee pouring into a cup. Now I said earlier that this was shot in slow motion, but that's not exactly true. I've reviewed a lot of the episodes and only rarely do they slow things down to what would be considered slow motion. However, they do slow it down a bit to about 70% of the speed of the original recording in post-production. Now here's another thing I learned. Coffee looks the same pouring into a cup whether it's hot or cold. So between takes, I'd pour the cold coffee into another cup and reuse that for another pour shot. A third thing they're doing is using a very warm color temperature. You're not just drinking hot bean water when you drink coffee, right? You're drinking a warm beverage. You're in a beautiful atmosphere and you're having a conversation with a friend. These are all warm things. You don't want a cool video, cool as in color, to show these warm atmospheres. So they're going to adjust the color temperature not only in how they shot it, but in post-production, they can even warm it up even more. Now the key to color temperature is shooting in a neutral kind of color setting. You can, in post-production, make it colder or make it warmer, but if you shot in warm, it's gonna look a lot different when you try to cool that down than if you would have just shot in a neutral color temperature and then corrected it in post. So although you can shoot in a certain color temperature on your camera, it's better to just do that in post and you can make the changes you need there. Okay, well, I think I got some of the shots I needed. I definitely need more practice, but I've had a blast doing this and I've learned a couple of things. First of all, preparation is key. I have to have everything set up before we start messing with coffee. That's a given. I have to have extra dishes or cups to put in coffee so that I can pour it back into the container that I'm going to pour from so that we can reuse it and not just use an entire vat of coffee to make these shots. And then the other thing is to remember to group my shots according to the lens that I have to use. One of the lenses is a prime lens. It's got a great high aperture setting all the way up to 1.8, but it's a dumb lens because it's a prime lens. It's another name for it. And it has no zoom capability. It's a 50 millimeter lens and that's all it does is 50 millimeters. Some of the shots that I needed to zoom, obviously I need a lens that can zoom in and out. So I had to swap lenses back and forth. And if I had that to do over again, I'd group my shots according to lens that I'm going to use for the shot. So I hope you enjoy this. I know I had a great time doing this and I had a great time in this class.